Hello everyone, I am Ishan Agarwal, part of the UCView platform team. The TOI is about LighSail. Moving to the next slide, overview. Agenda for the TOI is, I will discuss about what is LighSail, then we will see all the available specifications for the connection virtual platform overlay. I will then show the steps how to deploy the OVA to install the connection 8.6 on a virtual machine. Further, we will see how to upgrade the virtual machine configuration from 8.x previous releases to 8.6.2. Some of the troubleshooting tips and resources they will also be shared. Continuing to the next slide, LighSail overview. Cisco supports two different models for the use applications, virtual machine hardware. TRC configurations for the customers who want a packaged solution from Cisco that is pre-engineered for a specific deployment scenario, and the spec-based support intended for the customers who wish to use their own hardware standards. The LighSail initiative aims to help those customers who need a software-only solution from Cisco for the connection. It provides the spec-based requirements to configure CUC virtual machines on servers in existing virtualization infrastructure, eliminating the need to shift to the UCS. Having said that, the OVS that are provided as part of the LighSail, they can still be deployed on UCS. The pre-configured OVS provided by Cisco ensures that the virtual hardware meets the minimum requirements for connection during the install phase, and the virtual machine created using the OVA is ready to install the connection. CPU and memory reservations, they have been introduced in the virtual machine template to achieve it. Again, continuing to the next slide. Server CPU, it needs to be an E5500, E5600, or an E7500 series Intel processor. The supported server vendors are Cisco, HP and IBM. One vCPU on the server, it should be left unprovisioned for VMware ESXi scheduler use. VMware EXI 4.0 and 4.1, they are supported. Moving to the next slide, OVS specifications. Here the table, it shows you the different OVS that are available to us. The OVS, they are classified on the basis of number of users to be configured. For example, we have the OVS for users up to 1,000, up to 5,000, 10,000 and 20,000. The user for OVA for 1,000 users has a configuration like 1 vCPU, 2.13 GHz of CPU reservation, 4 GB of memory reservation, and 160 GB of the hard disk option. 5,000 user OVA, it has 2 vCPU, 5.06 GHz of CPU reservation, 6 GB of RAM, and 200 GB as the hard disk option. 10,000 user OVA, again it has 4 vCPU, 10.12 GHz of CPU reservation, 6 GB of RAM, and it comes with 3 disk options. You can have 2 hard disks of 146 GB each, or 300 GB each, or 500 GB each. And the same for 20,000 user OVA, we have 7 vCPUs, and CPU reservation is 17.71 GHz, 8 GB of memory, and it comes with 2 disk options. You can have 2 disks of each of 300 GB or 500 GB. All these other virtual platform overlays, they are bundled as a single OVA, which when deployed in vSphere gives you the option to choose from one of the above overlays. Moving to the next slide. Now, how to deploy an OVA for the fresh installation of connection 8.6.2. These are the steps which we will use for deploying a CUC OVA. First of all, you need to move into the vSphere client, then select the file menu and choose the deploy OVA tablet option. Now browse to the folder which contains the downloaded CUC OVA. After selecting the OVA, click the next button. Now click the next on the OVS template details screen. Now you need to provide a name to the VM virtual machine that you have created, and you need to select a data center to deploy that particular OVA. Now in the deployment configuration, you can choose from one of the following configurations, like you want a 1,000 user configuration or 5,000 user configuration. You can select from 3 of the 10,000 user configurations and 2 from the 20,000 user configurations. Now click the next button. Now you need to select the data center. host on which the virtual machine it should be deployed, click the next button. In the data store, select the data store where the hard disk of the virtual machine needs to be provisioned. Now you can select from the disk format options, either the thin provision format or the thick provision format. Choose the thick provision format in the disk format and click next. Here all the storage will be allocated immediately. In the next section, re-verify your VM configuration and click finish. You will be presented with a progress bar, on completion of which you can click on the close button. The progress of the creation of the virtual machine, it can also be monitored in the recent task pane in the vSphere client. Here you can optionally verify the CPU reservations and the memory reservations from the resource allocation tab in the vSphere client. After the verification, the newly created virtual machine is ready for the installation of connection. Moving to the next slide. Now, how will you upgrade from connection 8.x of previous releases to connection 862 OVS? Connection 862 OVS, they are different from the OVS or the prior releases in terms of additional memory and CPU reservations that are applied in the 862 OVS. Upgrading from an existing connection 8.x virtual machine to the connection 862 virtual machine is a manual process, and the steps are described in the coming slides. Now here are the steps for upgrading to 862 OVS. First of all, you need to upgrade the virtual machine configuration to 862. For this, you need to power off your virtual machine. Right click the name of the virtual machine and then select power and then the power off option. Once the virtual machine is powered off, then you can proceed to the edit virtual machine settings. Right click the virtual machine, then select the edit settings. Now these steps, they are to be followed if the existing version is lower than 861. Now in the newly opened properties window, under the options tab, select general options, choose the guest operating system as Linux, and the version is to be selected as Red Hat Enterprise Linux 5 32-bit. Now in this newly opened properties window, under the hardware tab, choose the memory size as per the OVS specifications table as it was described in the slide 5. In the resources tab, you need to select the memory from the left pane. Now go to the reservations field in the right pane. You can either use the slider or the text box to enter the appropriate reservation as per the OVS specification table. Now next you need to choose the number of virtual processors as per the OVS specifications table in the slide 5. Now select the CPU from the list in the left pane. In the resources tab, go to the reservation field in the right pane. Use the slider or the text box to apply the proper CPU reservation as per the OVS specifications table. Once all these things are done, you need to click the OK button and again you need to power on the virtual machine. Now the virtual machine has been upgraded as per the 862 OVS, and now you can proceed with the CUC upgrade. Moving to the next slide, here are some of the troubleshooting tips. In order to ensure that the proper deployment of OVS CUC 862 has been done, we can verify a number of options like virtual CPU count, CPU and memory reservations, hard disk size allocated, and the disk alignment. There is no way in which you can check whether the virtual machine is deployed from an OVA or is it manually configured. For verifying the disk alignment, the user can issue the fdisk-lu command from root or the remote account, and he can observe the output to see if the partitions are aligned or not. Aligned partitions will start with a value of 128, and for any other value, partitions will not be aligned. For example, here is an example to show the sample output of the fdisk-lu command. Here you can see that the partitions we are starting with in value 128 as indicated by the indicated in the red circle. Again, continuing to the next slide, here is also a .wiki from where you can also have answers to some of the other queries. Also the LRO settings they are seen, so disabling LRO is still required. Again, continuing the resources. These are some of the links from where you can download the OVS till the time they are not published on the Cisco website. That's all for the LighSail. Thank you.